Right, here we are with this 1951 350 Royal Enfield Bullet again, and my word, hasn't this one brought out some armchair critics, mechanics and experts. I'll put my hands up. Obviously it's been leaking oil and I've been working on that, and I'm going to go for a run on it again soon in the hope that I might have fixed what I think was a major oil leak between the back of the timing case and that end cover on the mag dyno, where there's a spring loaded felt seal that fits in a metal cup in there that's supposed to be pushed. You have the felt seal, metal cup, wavy spring, pushing the seal in against the timing case, and the gear that drives the magneto has got a shoulder on it that passes through the felt seal, and that's supposed to keep the oil under control and in there. As it was all fitted the wrong way round, it wasn't doing any such thing, and I think the engine was actually, as well as oil getting flung out, I think the engine was partially breathing through that opening then and actually blowing it out. So I've put all that right, and I'm going to be going for a ride soon, and let's see if any or all of the oil leaks have stopped. I'm not expecting it to be completely oil tight at this stage, but it was making a real mess of itself, and I'm hoping that we might be over the majority of the oil leakage at least. There's also been various remarks about the engine sounding like a bag of spanners. Well, it's not brand new, it's 70 years old, but I had the top end off it, and while the top end was off I checked the big end for any play in the conrod, and there wasn't any. The engine spins freely. I've put new oil pumps in it, new oil pump drive spindle and oil pump drive worm nut, new cork seal in there, so all the lubrication side of it, apart from all the oil that was getting out, was going where it should have been. And I've confirmed that the feed and the scavenge and everything are working really well. The oil is circulating, no problem at all, and plenty of it, so I'm not worried about anything tightening up or running dry. We've got a honed cylinder bore with a new piston and rings. I checked the cylinder head, and the valves and guides and seats were almost like brand new. All I did was clean them up. They didn't even need lapping in or anything. I checked them. I always check the valves. I tip the head upside down with no valve springs on, with the valves in place, and I put electrical cleaning fluid in there, or clutch and brake cleaner, and with the valves tipped upside down, just sealing by their own weight, I check to see if any of that stuff seeps past. I do that with all my cylinder heads and valves, and there's absolutely no leakage at all, no play in the guides, so there's no reason why it should burn oil or use oil or not produce its full potential power. Noises. Now, for the armchair experts, I'll tell you this: my camera microphone is not particularly flattering to engines, but I will admit that I've come across quieter engines than this one. But what do you do? In there, the gears between the camshafts and the mag dyno have all got a little bit of wear in their bushes, and the spindles they run on are also a little bit worn, so they rattle a little bit. They're not going to make the engine go pop. They're not going to come out of here. They've been in there for perhaps 70 years. They'll probably do another 70 years. So that brings us to the point now where some people would do a complete strip down and a total rebuild on this engine. While you're in there, oh, we might as well change the main bearings, we might as well change the big end. Well, yes, if you're going to strip the whole thing down, all well and good. But sometimes you've just got to assess things and make up your own mind as to whether they need looking at right now. And I would say with this one, that everything that I've checked and seen, to the best of my knowledge, appears to be what we could call serviceable. Okay, that engine is not like new. I'm not trying to make out that it is like new, and I haven't rebuilt it at all, only the top end. So the rest of it I've deemed serviceable. There's also a little bit of a sort of noise at a sort of frequency. There's a sort of whoa, whoa, whoa noise when it's ticking over from the gearbox and transmission. I've heard lots of old bullets do that. Now, if anything's loose or sloppy in that gearbox, the gearbox isn't going to lock up, is it? And I've actually seen situations where new bearings and bushes have been put into gearboxes, and there was a lock-up once where a lay shaft seized in a brand new lay shaft bush. So I'm quite happy to have a little bit of play and noise there. Believe me, I wouldn't be riding this thing if I thought it wasn't up to it. Now we've even actually had someone's criticised the handlebars. Well, I didn't put them on there. I've ridden the bike and I haven't even had any cause to even think about them, to be honest. But again, someone put them on there, someone liked them, someone wanted them like that. So let's leave that alone, shall we? The bike is taxed and I'm insured to ride it. I know there's no chain guard on it. Oh, go to jail, Paul. Well, that's in hand, but first of all I want to get these damned oil leaks sorted out, and I'm going to go for a ride on it again shortly, and hopefully I'll look down again at the timing case as we go along, and I'll probably make a couple of stops to check things over. I may well cut the ride short and come back disappointed, I don't know. But what I can tell you is, since I've sorted out that seal arrangement between the mag dyno and the back of the timing case, this little breather down here, which has got a brand new nut with vent in it and cork seal and everything, I've done all that. This now chuffs very slightly when it's ticking over, which it wasn't doing before, so that sort of implies that hopefully that is holding and it's forcing any breathing to go take the correct route. So anyway, enough about that. Overall, it's an old, fairly worn, slightly tired bike, but it should have lots more life left in it yet once I finally get it sorted, and I'm chipping away at it. And the next thing I'm going to do, it's a rather cold morning, there's still quite a bit of frost about, but I'm going to get some warm layers on and we'll go and take it for a ride and see what happens this time. So join me shortly and hopefully we'll get a few miles in and maybe not lose quite so much oil as we have been doing. Right, it's time for another test run on this really rather fine machine. It's perhaps not as good as it ought to be yet, or hasn't been, but it's time to give it another try. I also backed off the ignition timing a little bit when I had the mag dyno off, because it was a little over advanced. So hopefully that's sorted. Maybe we might even get a start in a moment. Hold on, tickle it up some more. There we are. Let's go for it. I'll look down at the timing cover from time to time. I've got a plan as to how far I'd like to go. Whether we'll get air or not before I turn round, we'll find out, eh? Once again, my apologies for it not sounding like a brand new machine. Just to emphasise that my camera mic is very sensitive to noises that we can't even hear ourselves. It's very handy when I'm looking for thinking, actually. But anyway, enough of that. Let's go see how we get on today. one. It seems to be coming from the cylinder head gasket actually, which is brand new, and it's got well seal on both sides of it. But I looked down early enough to get a good look at it. Running down the plastic cover there, which you guys can see. Tip the camera a bit. See. So back to the workshop, I think. Have a little look at this. I don't know how much it's coming from the head, but it's certainly got some. I can see some running down the plastic cover there, but there seems to be a lot more coming from underneath it. So I guess I'll look at those areas next then. So bit by bit we're going to get this bugger. Right, well, that should satisfy the armchair critics, but I'll carry on with this and I'll get those leaks stopped. It actually is coming from the cylinder head joint, which surprises me because I know that I fitted a brand new
composite head gasket, which I don't often use. They're not so good for holding high compression, but they're better at holding oil. And I also coated it on both sides with well seal, so something else is going on there, where perhaps the gasket's not getting clamped too tightly due to possibly the cylinder barrel liner spigot sticking up too far perhaps, or maybe at some point the cylinder head face has been skimmed. I think I'm going to have to take a look at all that sort of stuff in that area though. It's definitely a major culprit, and I know that I should have the mag dyno leak under control by now. I think that oil there is possibly just a bit of what's run down from the head and underneath the magneto platform. So back we go onto the bike lift and over to all the armchair critics and experts, and I'll just be told what's wrong with it and what I need to do. But bit by bit I'm going to work my way through this one and get this sorted, because they certainly shouldn't be jokingly referred to as Royal Oil fields. They're not meant to be like this, and I'm determined to stamp that out. So I'm going back to the workshop and I'm going to crack on with it, probably get the cylinder head up, take it from there. Right, well, after that run, this is, well, perhaps not an hour after I came back. I got the bike back on the bike lift here in the workshop. I'm going to take the cylinder head off and have a look and see what's going on with that head gasket on the pushrod side of the engine, but also whether, yeah, we should pick it up on the primary side of the engine. We've got between the fins there, we've got something rather suspicious looking, and it looks like filler. And I noticed that there was quite a bit of oiliness happening on this side of the engine as well. And what I've done, that filler appears to be on the outside of sort of passageway, or the drilling, if you like, through where the cylinder head nut passes. And there's obviously been some sort of damage there at some time, and someone's put some filler in it. And what I've done is I've wiped all that clean. As you can see, it's wet and oily looking now because I've been spraying WD-40 into there, and over a period of time it emerges, it seeps out through where that filler sort of stuff is. So I'm going to have to do something about that. I think what I'm going to try and do is perhaps, and I've done it before, is get that cylinder head nut there and get it in a lathe and machine a groove in it, and I'll fit an O-ring to it that'll be a tight fit as it screws in into the bore that it passes into in the head, and hopefully that'll stop any oil reaching that damaged area in the first place and sort that one out. But I'm going to take the cylinder head off anyway, because I suspect that we got a major issue around here actually, and I want to take a look at that. I want to get these oil leaks stopped. It's dragged on for long enough now, and it shouldn't be like this, and I'm determined to fix it. So I'll get back to it when we got the cylinder head off, and hopefully there might be something to see and explain it all, and we'll take it from there. Right, well, the bike's up on the bike lift again, and I've got the cylinder head off again now, and I've just been having a good look at things, and a couple of things spring to mind which wouldn't have been very helpful. And we start by looking at the cylinder head, the gasket face. Those two black marks there, we've had a bit of compression blowing past those, and if I run my fingernail over them, there's a very, very slight depression there. So I'm going to have to try and clean up the face, the joint face of the head, to eliminate those, because there's such a small area there for the gasket to work against to seal, and being a composite gasket as well, it just had no chance at all. But as well as that, and obviously that filler that I pointed out between the fins on the cylinder head on the primary drive side, if we look at this recess in the cylinder head here and look at the cylinder barrel spigot. I'm going to confirm it in a moment by placing the head on there without a gasket, but I've got a feeling that sort of bears witness to the underside of the cylinder head having touched down on this before the gasket has been fully clamped. So I'm going to place the cylinder head on top of the barrel and just check for a clearance or lack of between the two gasket faces, because I've got a feeling that perhaps it wasn't closing up tightly enough on the gasket as well. So if that's the case, I'll have to do something about that, and like I say, clean up the gasket face on the cylinder head there. We've probably had a slight blow of compression going up the cylinder head stud holes and into the rocker boxes, and perhaps pressurising a little and forcing some oil out. I'm going to have to look at all of this very, very carefully, because I want to get any leaks from this top end sorted this time with the head off. I don't want to be coming back to it again, or even again and again. I want it I'm going to go through everything very thoroughly now, look at everything I can think of, and make sure that I can get this thing oil tight. So we'll see what happens next. Right, here we are with the 1951 Model G2 Bullet again, with the head off, and I've been cleaning gasket faces up and having a look at everything and considering my options, and I've come up with, I don't know if there's a plan B, C, D or whatever it might be by now. I'm going to do this. This is a head gasket, a solid copper head gasket for a 350 Model G Bullet, the machine that preceded this kind of engine, and they also had a spigot on the top of their liner and a recess in the head, and they held their compression by using a copper head gasket in there, and they had special arrangement where they had little rubber or cork seals passing through metal tubes to seal the pushrod tunnels, which was actually a much better idea than what we have here. But if I use this copper head gasket, that'll take care of the compression, so I won't have to worry about those burnt and blown sealing faces there adjacent to the stud holes, because there'll be no compression bearing against this face anywhere anymore. It'll all be held there. And then what I'm going to do is, obviously that's going to raise the cylinder head up away from the joint face of the cylinder barrel a little. I've checked the clearance, and actually it hasn't taken it up by the entire thickness of this Model G head gasket. There must have been a clearance, I think, between this face and the top of the liner when it had a normal, ordinary sort of composite gasket in there doing the job, or trying to do the job. Anyway, with that in place and a head placed on top of the barrel, we're not quite crushing this copper sandwich head gasket tightly, but this doesn't have to hold compression anymore. I'm really just going to use this as a strong spacer, and I'm going to coat it with a good strong sealant on either side, and this will be used purely to contain any oil within the engine and stop it escaping, and it won't be holding any compression at all. The highest pressure it'll have to deal with may be any internal crankcase pressures, which should all be escaping via the breather anyway. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to anneal this one, heat it up until it's cherry red, and plunge it in cold water, and then use that as the compression head gasket. And like I say, coat this one on both sides with a good strong sealant and put it all back together, and fingers crossed we might have banished some oil leaks, preferably all of them. And I'm also, as I discussed earlier, I'm going to machine a groove in at least one, I might do all of these cylinder head sleeve nuts, so that they can take O-rings. Probably machine a little channel about there, put O-rings on them, and that will prevent any oil trying to run down through the cylinder head stud holes and aggravate things around here. So that's the plan. I'm going to go and have some lunch next, and then I'm going to come back and crack on with that.